Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to review the classic Seiko Diver. This is a 200 meter water resistance 37 millimeter Seiko SKX013. This is the smaller cousin to the Seiko SKX007, which has a much larger face at 41 millimeter. And in my opinion, this is the more classic of diver watches because the size of watch face really dates back to the mid 50s when the first submariner style diver watches get released, and Seiko gets into the act in the early 60s. So this is far more dimensionally accurate. But let's get more into it as we go into the separate parts of the watch. So this uses the 7S26 movement. This is a movement that really Seiko introduces in the mid 90s, and it's a very venerable movement. It has stayed with us in all Seiko watches to this day. So it's been in operation for more than 20 years now, which means the movement works really well. It has a bezel that clicks about twice per second. So it has 120 clicks to go around the dial. I'm getting a bit more resistance to my dial than I would like to the bezel than I would like to, but for diving watches, it makes sense to have some resistance so that it doesn't go off from, the time that you set it at. Let's get it set at 0 so that we know how much oxygen we have left in our tanks. Now I have, if you really go diving, I would probably use my digital watch for diving. I mean, any digital dive calculator is going to be way more reliable and more utilitarian and more practical than any of these old mechanical watches. So this really is more of a fashion accessory now and less of a dive watch. It comes with a hardlex crystal, and there's very little lip between the crystal and the bezel, which means it can get scratched, but from my experience the hardlex crystals tend to be fairly robust. On the back is a solid stainless steel casing with Seiko's tsunami logo on it, and mine, because it's really more of a fashion watch, it comes with the very classic Jubilee watch, Jubilee band, which Seiko introduces in the 1970s, and I think is more historically accurate for the watch. This has a clasp. I wish it had a spring-loaded clasp so that it was a bit more easier to remove, but I guess this cheap clasp that they're using does seem to do its job. Now the hands have very distinctive arrows on them. Let me clean this up a bit because I realize there's some fingerprints on the watch face. So let's get that crystal cleaned and then let's look at it. So the hands have these distinctive arrows on them. The minute hand has an arrow as well as the second hand. The larger model of the automatic diver has a different model for the different hand for the second hand, but I actually think this one looks far more appealing. Like both the divers, this has the orange lettering that says 200 diver with 200 meter water resistance, and like most automatics, this typically you can expect to lose between 20 seconds to either gain or lose 20 seconds. Mine loses about 5 seconds a day, which is not so bad. I've noticed that as I keep using it, it lost a lot more time in the beginning and it's losing less time as the years go by, which essentially leads me to believe that as the movement wears out a bit more, it tends to get faster. So I'm waiting for the day when this should start keeping the right time. The movement is a 21 joule movement and has a beat rate of 21,600 beats per hour, and it is non-hand winding and non-hacking. It's cheap and reliable movement, so I have really nothing bad to say about the movement. It's a very wearable watch because it's easy on the wrist. It really doesn't have any sharp edges. These edges are all rounded, which means there's really nothing to scrape you or really make you feel that the watch exists. It's a kind of a watch that you can wear and just forget that you have the watch on you. The one complaint that I do have is the bezel has a paint finish on it. I wish, obviously at this price point, you're not gonna get a ceramic or an engraved bezel. And there are plenty of mods online that are available where you can change the bezel. But again, I don't really feel the need to change the bezel. Any dive watch really needs a few nicks and scratches on it. I'm going to show you what the Lume looks like. So maybe if I let's try to cover the light to show you what the Lume would look like, and there's just way too much light here. But anyway, as you can see, it's got a really bright Lume. It is, if it gets hit with the light, it's extremely bright, but even at night I can pretty much see what the Lume looks like. In terms of maybe things that I would change in the watch, I do find that I just can't, some of the machining on the crown are kind of like this crown and the bezel. I wish they were a little sharper so that it's a bit more grippy. I definitely find that the crown is sometimes the spring loaded when I have to if I have to adjust the time and push the crown back. It's a little harder to push it back, and that's kind of frustrating because I can see it progressively getting worse, and it does give me some concern that maybe the crown isn't as robust as I would like it to be. I can see that some of the stainless steel is beginning to scratch from usage, but I like a little bit of scratching on my watch, so I'm quite happy with it. This clasp is really cheap. I wish Seiko would use a more robust clasp like it did in its older watches. So that's one thing, that's something that can be improved. It does have a very significant depth to it because the rotating bezel really sticks out. But I have a fairly small wrist, so I don't really find it that aggravating. It does help that the crown is at the 4 o'clock position and not at the 3 o'clock position, which makes it easy to bend the wrist. The stainless steel on the actual watch has almost a brushed quality to it out here, which sort of looks good when it diffuses the light. You can see the difference, like that's a polished stainless steel out there, and that's that has the brushed stainless steel to it. And similarly, you can see the same counterpoint on the Jubilee, where the larger links are brushed and the links in the center are polished. So that definitely does catch, it's like a detail that does catch the eye of the beholder. I wish maybe they had gone into some level of detailing on the clasp, but again, I'm not complaining. It is really the thing that in conclusion that I really like about the Seiko is that This is one of those watches that stands up to the Rolex Submariner for, you know, the it's as an iconic fashion accessory, but it doesn't really, it definitely creates its own identity. This is a watch you can wear with a lot of pride, in your collection. It's a watch you can wear, it's a watch that you can expect to last forever, without without being referential to other watches. There is, it really stands on its own presence. And let me know in the comments if there's any questions that you have. I got this for around 200 something dollars. You can typically get it on Amazon for $210. I have seen it on eBay going as low as $160 if you buy it from one of the gray market Singapore sellers. But Seiko only gives a year's warranty, so you can pretty much get it off a gray market seller and uh, you know get a watch that's gonna last you for a long time. The one distinction is when you get it from a gray market seller, your dates would be in Arabic and English, whereas if you get it from Seiko USA, you're gonna get dates in Spanish, the days in Spanish and English. That's really the only difference. I have heard from people that the Asian model, which has the Arabic and English dates, has uh, a Japanese movement, but that's not really true. These guys are all made in, I think, in Thailand these days, or China. So you're really going to get the same movement. You no longer get Japanese movements on this. In fact, if you're getting a watch that has a Japanese movement, be sure that that's not a fake, because a lot of counterfeit watches claim to have Japanese movement because there's a larger market for it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you with my next video.